What's up, everybody? Hope everyone is having a great night so far. This is episode 4 of Miami Hurricanes Football After Dark. We got a great group of guests right now. We have a highly recommended guest himself, Better Duck on Twitter. Thank you so much for coming on, sir. Greatly appreciate it. We got Kevin Smith from Canecast, the infamous podcast that recorded Alonzo Highsmith. Got that caller to say Miami wanted Alonzo Highsmith. Hey, the rest of it is history on that. And we got a special guest all the way from Alaska, North Fresh. Man, thank you so much for joining again. North Fresh, what do you got for us tonight, sir?
First and foremost, like always, want to say hi to everybody. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope everybody's blessed. Hope everything's on the up and up like usual. Jumping into Canes football here. I mean, we're in the thick of some recruiting right now, boys. We are in the thick of some really nice things right now. We've got guys like Marshall, Taylor, Lewis, Chase Smith, Sapp. I mean, we've got some big names going on. To focus things off right now, what do you guys think about Taylor? I mean, are we feeling good on this? What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, man. I honestly think I feel really good about Taylor. In the early stages, even like about a month or so ago, I was really skeptical because he was kind of doing the whole like, I'm going to wear all of Miami's gear while I work out, videotape it. We've seen that story 1,000 times over again, and then they go off and troll us and pick another team. But lately, it's really been trending in the right direction. I've stated this on Twitter so much. Like, I don't think it's understated how much as COVID is awful for the world, awful for the United States, the only thing it's done for the University of Miami is given them a leg up in the recruiting game. These kids can't go on visits. Are you really going to commit somewhere or go play somewhere for 4 years without seeing the place in person other than a FaceTime or a virtual visit? You know, I think this is something that's played really into our favor, and I think Taylor's kind of one of those guys that, you know, he's worked out with Tommy Streeter. He's been around a lot of the Canes guys because he's been home. He hasn't really been able to go anywhere like all of us haven't. So I think it's kind of made him feel like this is a place that is home for him. And I feel I'm like 98% positive he's going to commit to the University of Miami. Obviously, there's been surprises. Things happen at the last minute. But I'd be very surprised if he didn't land with the Canes tomorrow.
Nice. Better Duck, what do you got on that, man?
I'm not a huge high school football guy,
Okay.
so I haven't seen this kid play, but, you know, he's got the big numbers and comes highly, recruited and all that stuff. And he's a D tackle, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a full-grown man position. Like, it takes a while. You just don't show up. It's not like returning kicks or playing running back. The kid's got to grow into his body and realize that he's going up against most other dudes that are going to be 4- and 5-year seniors that are playing center in the ACC. Those pit positions, it's tough. In Miami, we are in a revolving situation where the kids are leaving early. Always. The defensive linemen that show any promise at all leave as juniors and really only have 1 or 2 years, and that's really a position that you should be playing your junior and senior year because freshman defensive tackles just – they don't do it. So I guess it's a long-term projection for the kid. It's going to be exciting if he signs with Miami. If I was a defensive tackle, I would sign with Miami because their pedigree is unmatched. It's not even close. Like, I can't think of another school that's produced more bigger defensive tackles.
And I think Canes Edit has just entered the live show. Welcome, sir. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you loud and clear, man. And
Awesome.
basically, we're talking about Leonard Taylor. He's making his commitment tomorrow, I believe at 12:45. What are your thoughts on Leonard Taylor and his announcement tomorrow?
That's as big of a commit as you can possibly get in your own backyard.
Yeah.
And something that could definitely turn the tide of recruiting down here in South Florida if we land him.
No doubt about it. Absolutely. And, you know, speaking about Leonard Taylor, you know, in his announcement, he has 2 crystal balls on 247 Sports going to Miami. You know, take everything with a grain of salt in recruiting. As we all know, Avante Williams was a heavy Florida Gator lean. And then, you know, all of a sudden he picks Miami. These are human beings making decisions. Ricky Williams was not supposed to go back to his senior year at Texas. You know, he was supposed to announce early and go pro. So, you know, these are human beings, and everyone makes last-minute decisions in life. In every decision, everyone has to make. So, you know, you never know with the announcement tomorrow. But I think ultimately Leonard Taylor, you know, it seems like he will be a Miami Hurricane. And like Kevin said, you know, he is working out with Tommy Streeter as well, who was a former Miami Hurricane.
I think something, Paul, that can't be understated too. The commitment of James Williams came so out of left field for so many of us that I think that showed that the Miami coaching staff was doing so much behind the scenes that we had no idea what was going on.
Right.
And I think that they've really been in these kids' ears for 2-3 months. And I think it's finally starting to pay off. Like I said, because they can't go visit these schools. It's hard to visit. It's hard to, you know, really build a connection over FaceTime or a phone call. And they've been able to really hone in on that. And when James Williams dropped, the floodgates opened, I feel like. And now it's like you feel like you have a chance with all these kids that you never thought, after going 6-7 and losing to FIU and Duke, that you would ever even be in the top 5-6 of their choices. So I think with that dropping, it really just opened up the floodgates to give us a chance with all these other kids.
Absolutely. And speaking of, you know, working behind the scenes, guys, Ja'Cory Hammett just left the class. Canes Edit, what are your thoughts on that? And where do you think Miami stands moving forward with other recruits with a new spot opening up?
Well, you know, we were already down to about, 2 or 3 scholarships. So
yes.
I told everybody that attrition happens, plans change. I can't imagine any kid from Miami Northwestern just wanting to leave the class and go to be with West Virginia, but maybe he saw more of an opportunity there. That happens a lot, especially for kids down here. Some kids feel like there's too many chefs in the kitchen, you know, and then, you know, they want to go to a school where, you know, they could possibly get more early playing time. And I think that Corey Hammett was one of those guys that saw that opportunity and took it at West Virginia.
No, absolutely. Better Duck, what do you think?
What position is he?
This is Ja'Cory Hammett was outside linebacker at Miami Northwestern. He basically, some say he was dropped, you know, flipping to West Virginia.
You just don't know. It's such a tough time now with these kids. I feel terrible for the, you know, this generation, this class that is going through this nonsense. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it just changes everything. So who knows? You know, I know that I couldn't make smart decisions when I was 17 years old.
Yeah.
I'm making critical decisions now, later in life. So if they backed off of him, if the position coaches or whatever backed off, or they kind of got cold on the offer, West Virginia is not a bad spot. My best buddy was recruited by West Virginia, and it was an awesome process.
Yeah.
Recruited out of St. Thomas by Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
And he ended up going and playing corner for UConn.
Nice.
And I was rubbing him today about UConn, you know, dropping. So, you know, I'm excited. The good thing is these kids from Palmetto and Northwestern, those are bona fide programs, you know? So even though we sort of got burned with the Northwestern class from, what was that, 2008 or something?
Give or take, 06, 07. Yeah.
Where we took all this, still like 3 of those kids made NFL rosters.
Yep.
For a couple of years. That's infinitesimal. You know what I mean? Like where I went to Fort Lauderdale High School, we haven't had a guy go to the NFL.
The Flying L's?
Yeah. I mean, I think like recently, like in the last 10 years, had an offensive lineman go. But like all during the time I was actually paying attention and stuff, we never had a guy go. And to have 3 kids from one class at Northwestern go, you know, a lot of stuff went into that also with Randy being given the mandate to uplift grade point averages and graduation rates.
Okay.
Which no other football coach that's trying to win national titles or be a big boy has to deal with. Nobody in the SEC gets mandated, hey, you need to raise the GPAs and raise the graduation rates. And Randy did.
Right.
And got it up there like by Stanford. Like it was like Stanford, then Miami, then, like Columbia, Notre Dame or something. And he lost too many games and they fired him. But there were unrealistic mandates put on him, So I'll take the kids from Northwestern.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, hey, it's Miami football is one of the best areas in the country. South Florida football, one of the best regions in the country, hands down. I mean, for some reason, even the under-the-radar kids like T.O.I. Hilton, Tutu Atwell, Lamar Jackson to a certain extent, they do it better than anywhere else. Norfresh, what's your opinion on Ja'Cory Hammett leaving the class moving forward?
What I'd like to think that what it is maybe a situation. I don't want to be overboard about it, but maybe a situation where Terrence Lewis might be more of a possible take for us than we initially realized. That's where I'd like to see this direction be pointed in, if all possible. I mean, that'd just be an incredible upgrade, in my opinion. Absolutely incredible. Best of luck to Hammett. West Virginia is a fantastic university, fantastic football program. He's gonna develop there. He's gonna do well. I think he's gonna be a decent Division I football player. Man, I'm telling you, if this for some reason, if this was a move that the staff kind of felt that we need to make an extra space for a guy like Lewis, that's a no-brainer to me, man. You slide that guy right in.
Absolutely. Kevin, what do you think?
First of all, I think Lewis is a pipe dream. I also don't want Lewis, if that's a weird, unpopular decision or opinion. Just mainly the kid is just I think Manny's done a good job, and I think over the last 5 years or so, the program has done a really good job getting high character kids, molding them into, hard workers, something even Mark Richt did. I just think the whole thing with, I don't even know, him punching a coach, and I heard that they backed off him because it was character issues. It had nothing to do with, I don't think that's changed. I'm actually looking at Jaden Hood out of St. Thomas Aquinas.
Oh.
I think that makes sense more. Again, a kid that committed to Michigan. Again, it's COVID era. Does he really feel comfortable going to Michigan for the next 4 years after he's probably seen the campus once maybe before COVID happened? I don't know how many times he went up there. But I think that's an opportunity for the coaches to swoop in and see if that's a spot that they can fill. I honestly think it was just a drop. They needed spots, and they didn't see themselves, really sticking with the kids. So I just think that's what it is. It's nothing deeper than that. I don't think they have a kid that they're going to fill it right with this second, but I think they have a couple kids that are kind of waiting in the wings that they can try to get in this class.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, regarding spots, there has been some rumors floating around that the NCAA may grant more scholarships, due to this season. And, Better Doug just mentioned UConn. UConn cancels their football season. Should their players be allowed to transfer and be granted immediate eligibility at other programs? I mean, I think that is a viable option. What do you guys think on that?
You'd be allowed to, without a doubt.
You think so?
For sure. Yeah, you
I don't
can't.
think the season's going to happen.
You don't think so?
Nah, I think it's just going to keep hitting stumbling blocks, and kids are going to test positive, and they can power through it. There's this portion of the country that just wants to power through. Young people are healthy for the most part. They don't get, devastated by the disease. But I mentioned this on another show. Somebody said, or there were rumors going around that like a lot of Clemson and Alabama kids got sick early.
Right.
And the conspiracy theory is that they wanted those kids to catch it early so they wouldn't catch it later, in November and December. Well, if one of those kids, we've all seen it before, it happens more with basketball players than football players because of the congenital heart disease or whatever. But like every year, like a basketball player kid falls dead on the court.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's like a 6'10" kid, and they're like, oh, he had his aorta was too big or whatever, an enlarged heart. If a kid gets sick and a kid from one of these Division I schools dies, and it ends up being like on ESPN, and they're all talking about it, dude, that's going to be a big problem. And they're going to come back, and people are going to say, hey, did a position coach at Clemson or, whatever school encourage these kids to hang out in the same apartment together and all get sick? I just don't think it's going to happen. I want it to happen, but you know, I'm not a news hound, but I watch, and it's like, especially.
I agree with Duck. I mean, I am excited for the season. I'm optimistic, cautiously optimistic. But my thing is an outbreak is going to happen. Like that's like it. To think that it's not going to happen, you're naive.
Look at Rutgers right now.
So what's going to happen when that happens? Are they just going to freak out and, you know, they don't have a plan, or it's just going to like he said, roadblocks, and then they're just going to postpone it another 2 weeks or whatever? Like what's going to happen? Like these are kids that aren't getting paid too. So there's no union. There's no liability waivers or anything that they can, because they're getting paid. These are kids that are at school. So I think the season's going to kick off as normal. I think, you know, everything is going to kick off as normal. Now what happens after that, who the hell knows? That's where the problem
There's
lies.
so much at stake. And you have different types. Like Miami is a unique school. It's a tiny private school in a major metropolitan area that plays at the highest level of college football. The only similar situation is USC, and they're a gigantic school.
Right. Yeah.
They play in Los Angeles. Everybody else, for the most part, plays in rural America, in small country, you know, in small towns. In Gainesville, the Gators have 8 or 9 home games, and they can't afford to lose one home game to their local economy.
Right. That's a valid point.
All the restaurants, all the bars and everything. If they lose 8 or 9 games, if they lose the season or a season and a half, the whole town might go out of business.
Now, to be fair, Connecticut is independent, so scheduling will be a lot harder for them. And they would have to maybe join a conference, like Notre Dame got bailed out by the ACC. So there is that.
I forgot they left the AAC, that they're independent.
Yeah, they left last year, the AAC. And they were thinking about canceling football, I believe. So, you know, Connecticut, they're going to take a huge loss economically, you know, like Better Duck said, regarding specific college towns without playing. So, you know, it'll be very interesting which programs do a rebound from this. Kane's Edit, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm with Better Duck, man. I don't think the season's going to happen. I think that, especially when you talk about kids and not only that, but the sentiment, political sentiment in the air about what these kids mean, of where the neighborhoods they come from, and a lot of people waking up to a lot of injustices. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I think that you'd be crazy to have these kids play in dangerous conditions where they still have grandmothers to go back to. They still got mothers to go back to. They still got family they might visit and might pass it on regardless if they're that healthy or not. So, I mean, I think that just due to what's at stake and due to the political nature of what we're seeing lately, I can't imagine that the season would happen. If anything, I was actually saying maybe a mini season in January where we play like 6 games and then a bowl game. But that's what I thought was going to happen. But as far as the season goes, I don't want to be the pessimist, but yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with Better Duck, man. I don't right now I don't see a possible way that's going to happen.
Northfresh, what do you think, man?
I'm about 70% of me thinks that we're not going to have a season. I got that little bit of hope that's kind of in the corner there that's I don't want to get rid of completely yet, you know. But I mean, just like Edit was just saying right now, man. I mean, it's bigger than football. It goes off the field. I mean, this is something to where they got to go back to possibly, like you said, grandmothers, their own parents. A lot of these guys have their own kids even. So, I mean, this is a big deal. We're looking at how the major sports leagues are handling it right now. And the NBA, I mean, they are in a bubble. Yes, they're having success, but they are literally in a contained, controlled bubble. You're looking at Major League Baseball. They've already had issues. So I don't know how you corral a nation of college kids to be able to get this to happen. I just don't see it, honestly. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting how the season plays out. Pac-12, you know, there's players, you know, gathering together, you know, to sit out this season. And I guess they're arguing for wages. I don't know the full details, but, you know, there's a lot of things going on this offseason, so it's going to be very interesting how things turn out. Speaking of this offseason, Northfresh, as we all know, Jake Garcia is going cross-country to South Georgia. Man, what are your thoughts on that, on Jake Garcia, guys? If you guys aren't familiar with him, 4-star quarterback out of Southern California. Miami is in the hunt to land him. He's also a solid commitment to the University of Southern California.
Man, until we got this news today, I had kind of written off our chances at getting Garcia, honestly. This news really stood out, though. I mean, it can't hurt. Like Better Duck was speaking about already, having COVID, being around and stuff, having a kid closer to us just can't hurt. I mean, I just see no negative about that whatsoever with him being physically closer to us now. The idea that he truly, truly wanted to play football and he couldn't get that done in California, if that is the absolute main factor, then I'm not sure where that absolutely leaves us. But if this move had something to do with some kind of intrigue for the University of Miami, that's good stuff for us.
Kane's at it. What do you got?
Man, Jake Garcia, that would be a huge land. I don't see it happening right now. I think that he's comfortable at USC. He knows he's going to get the starting job over that other quarterback. I think it intrigues him, but I think that the situation of his confidence is probably going to take him over to stay at USC, in my opinion.
Okay. Better Duck, what do you think on the situation at hand?
I followed him a little bit. What's he doing in South Georgia?
Yeah, he basically – the backstory, he has gone to different high schools. I think this will be his third different high school. And he just – I think South Georgia is going to – they plan on playing high school football. So Southern California hasn't made that decision yet. So he wants to play his final year of football and instead of foregoing his senior year. So that's
his family has money.
I don't – his father did play football in Nebraska. I don't know what he did after college. But the transition, maybe, that could be expensive.
That's a big deal, just moving from Southern California to Georgia for 1 year to play high school.
Yeah, I don't know if someone's funding it as well. That's always there's always that.
Yeah.
So, do you like the idea, Better Duck, of a player jumping different high schools? Do you think that's a bad sign, or do you think that's irrelevant when it comes to playing at a college football program?
The quarterback thing is so weird that I remember for years they accused St. Thomas Aquinas of recruiting.
Yeah.
Right? Then it flipped where that situation, kids were moving here with their parents, rich kids, to attend St. Thomas. It wasn't so much that St. Thomas was grabbing kids, but kids like highly ranked quarterbacks and highly recruited players were like, hey, man, if you want to make it to Division I and into the league, we're moving to Fort Lauderdale and you're enrolling in St. Thomas.
Yeah.
And they've gotten it's different than when I was in high school, where now it's a two-tiered system, and they aren't having as much success because they're trying to feature the 5-star players. There's a bunch of NFL players that have kids on the team. There's a bunch of kids that are, 4 and 5 stars, and those kids are treated differently than they were under Coach George Smith when St. Thomas played team football and fundamental football, and it was 100 kids, and they were a well-coached team. Now it's almost like a mini Miami in a way where you have a bunch of not prima donnas, but like a bunch of skill player kids that they're trying to showcase.
Right. And
the local kids, the normal kids that live in my neighborhood and stuff that go to St. Thomas are like bummed. Right. Like, I'm just a regular high school kid. I'm not, Jason Taylor's son or whoever. And it's weird. So that kid going to Georgia and showing up at a high school like, dude, I'm Jake Garcia. I'm the man. Like, that can cut both ways. That kid could be a punk.
Maybe, yeah. That is possible. That is a fair opinion. Kevin, what do you think on it?
I think it's interesting because I think Lashley's got something up his sleeve. I don't know what it is because I think he's got to take a quarterback, mainly because you think of this year, De'Aaron King leaves. If there is a season, De'Aaron King leaves. It leaves you with Tyler Van Dyke, N'Kosi Perry still, and then the kid from Texas, right? The 2-star.
Right.
I forgot his name.
Matoka.
which
We
we don't know
got
how
we got Tate Martell wandering around in there
And
somewhere.
you got
too.
Tate Martell
The comeback.
somewhere
The
wandering
comeback.
around. Not know if he's a wide receiver or quarterback. He doesn't know where he's at. So I think he's got to make a splash somewhere. I think he's got to take his guy. I'm a big proponent of you got to take a quarterback every class. I just think you do. You got to stack the position. I think, honestly, the USC situation is interesting one because you got Miller Moss and then you got Jake Garcia. Like, do both of them want to go into that situation? Now, people will say, do you want them? Because that means they're not a competitor. But I think one of those two is going to fall out at some point because you really want to go into the same class, the two top 60 quarterbacks. Like, would you want to do that as a quarterback? I also think it's interesting, the Georgia situation, because I heard some weird rumblings about Vandergriff, the quarterback they got landed for him, because you got to think they got Newman and they got JT Daniels that's coming in next year.
Right.
So I don't know when that kid expects to play, but it's not going to be probably for the next 2-3 years. So I think he's got something up his sleeve. I think I don't know about Jake Garcia, but I think Lashley's going to land his guy. And I think we're all going to be surprised. It's going to be one of those Jake Williams situations where it's just going to drop one day on the timeline and we're all just going to freak out. But I think it's going to be a solid quarterback. I think he has his hands in a bunch of different cookie jars, and I think eventually one is going to pop.
Jake Garcia, Jeff Garcia's kid?
No, he is not. No. Yeah, his father played at Nebraska. I don't think he was a big-time quarterback there. But no, he's not. You're not the first to ask that question either, so don't worry. It's been asked a lot. But Northfresh, man, what do you got for us?
A name kind of popped up today. Well, actually, the last 2 days was a name that we haven't really got a chance to talk much about yet on the recruiting cycle, but that's Chase Smith at wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I've had my eye on him for a while. I mean, I love the upside, his natural size alone, his length, playmaking ability. He's got it. I mean, I really like this kid. And there are some people that I've been talking with in some of these chat groups and stuff that are saying that we've got a lot more pull on him than we realized. I mean, it sounds like there is some legitimate interest. What do you guys have heard anything? Have anybody heard?
I think with Chase Smith, it's like the same thing as what's his name? The kid out of Central, the receiver.
Keith Brown?
Keith Brown. I think it's the same situation, honestly. I think both of them want to come to Miami. I think they're ours to lose. I think it's a matter of Miami just trying to figure out where they're at with spots and who they can take, who they can't take. I think Miami wants to take both if they could, or one of them. But I think it's just going to be one of those that where towards the end, like November, December, they're going to like decide, all right, do we have any spots left? And they're going to go all in on one of them. I like Chase Smith more than Keith Brown. I just think he's more versatile. But if they want him, I think Miami can get him.
Kane's at it. I got a question for you, man. Who do you have? If you have to make the decision, what's one recruit you need in this class?
In this class, I mean, one that's currently committed or one that hasn't been committed?
One has that we can grab, either a flip or just he's out there in the market.
Man, I think Leonard Taylor, man. That's
Leonard
the
Taylor
guy. I would think that absolutely have to be Leonard Taylor. Even though my heart says that I would love to land Jason Marshall because, I mean, we haven't had a 5-star cornerback in like the last decade. I think, what was his name? The kid from Miramar was the last one.
Tracy Howard? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, he was the last. That was 2013, 2012. So it's been about a decade almost since we've had it. And, we've talked about Rum's struggles in the timeline. And how he struggled to have landed a 5-star kid, but it doesn't make any sense. I'm not exactly sure why. He's a great developer. We saw the work he's done with some of the players that have came in and where they are. Look at Michael Jackson. So, I mean, he's definitely knows how to coach him up, but it seems like the 5-star corner has eluded us for the last almost decade now.
Do you guys think Mike Rumph, if he misses or if he gets Jason Marshall Jr., do you think it's a make or break signing for him as a recruiter or as a coach on the staff as well? Because, the fan base is 50-50 on him, I feel like. Either you love him or you don't. What do you guys think?
I think the job entails recruiting and coaching. I think that you can't that's kind of the gig. It's like if I'm providing something of an artwork or something of an edit, it's Photoshop, and if I say I'm doing video too and they hire me for both, I got to do both. So, I mean, it's just not, well, you can't have one without the other, in my opinion, even though he is a great developer. He's a really good coach. And I know that there's going to be a lot of programs out there that want him if something happens to him where he's no longer on the staff. But in my opinion, I think you can't have one without the other, man. You absolutely have to be able to land backyard talent, and it has eluded us. So,
Better Duck, what do you think?
I think that big-time corner is a premium position right now, and I think that probably a lot of Rump's problems are losing kids to SEC schools that are just paying.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, that's a very high-profile position now because of the way the game's played. Everybody throws every down. And while receivers are a dime a dozen, the corners that can cover those receivers are not a dime a dozen. You know, you can find a 6'5" kid that can catch a football at any Home Depot in Florida, but find somebody that can cover him. Now you're really searching. So I think Rumpf has had some bad luck and bad timing. And we also don't know, going back to like mandates and stuff. Miami, who's Kev was saying that they've, tried to recruit and build some kids that have their shit together and have decent morals and everything. And Miami hasn't been able to take a risk on anybody, not since the probation. They haven't taken one wild kid yet. The last wild kid that was on the team was Olsen's brother. Like every kid has been straight and narrow, and they've had no problems, and that's because the NCAA is probably still sniffing. Like, Miami does something stupid one more time, we're going to hammer them. So who knows what the administration has been like? Hey, we just have to cool it for 5 or 10 years, and we can't take any wild kids. And corners are wild. You know what I mean? They're just different. They're wired different.
I think the Rump criticism is a little bit too much, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit too much. You got to think about, like, people act like he's landing like these like low 3-star kids that just like are like guys we have no idea who they are. Like, he's landed some pretty solid recruits. I mean, Christian Williams in the last class, DJ Ivy was a good recruit. He's landed kids that aren't like, they're not like slouches. They're good kids. They're good players. And like you guys said, he's a good developer, so he kind of gets the most out of the kids. I also think it's a product of, like, you can't dig on a guy when you don't win, like, for recruiting. Like, winning is the biggest key to recruiting. And, like, we always dogged on him because Surtain didn't want to come here, and all these kids that went to Georgia, Stevenson, and all these kids that didn't come here. Like, why would they come here? Like, let's be realistic. Like, it's kind of like you got to think these kids have an ability to go somewhere where they're going to win 10, 11 games. They're going to be on a spotlight. Why would they come to Miami? Now, obviously, that's something Manny's figured out, and he's getting these kids somehow, one way or another. We don't know really how. But you can't rag on a guy when he's still going out and getting respectable recruits, and he's doing a lot with them developmental-wise. I get the criticisms, but if you're telling me you were winning 10, 11 games and he can't land those kids, then that's a problem. But for right now, you just went 6-7, dude. You went 7-6, 6-7 the year before. Like, what do you expect from the guy? I mean, he's still going out and getting good recruits.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, we're not winning at Miami. Sometimes our fans act like we're winning, but we're not winning. We really aren't the last 20 years. So, it's pretty evident. Norfresh, what do you think on Mike Rump?
My thing with Rumpf is, I mean, you guys talked about, I love the fact that he can develop players. I mean, that's just something that is, we know it's key. We've seen lack of development at other positions, and we've seen how much it hurts us. So I will forever thank Rumpf for his ability to do that for us, because it's been a big deal. It's, regardless of what anybody says about him, it's been a big deal. My thing is that if we continue to see the rest of the units keep elevating their recruiting status more and more and more and more, and he's not catching up, that's where I start to see problems. Now, that is something that will take more than just this offseason to see or to figure out, but you got guys like Banda, who's just been out killing it lately, running back coach has been doing a great job, tight end coaches. Garen Justice is already picking things up on the offensive line. Defensive line has been pretty dang good, especially on the defensive end part of it. if the rest of these guys keep picking it up, I'd like to see Rumpf kind of be there with them because we want to move up as a unit. We want to move up as a whole team. I want this whole team to have talent on it,
No, hey, I mean, I agree. I'm pulling for Mike Rump. He seems like a good guy. Look at the hand he's been given. He's been put in tough circumstances, and he has came through with Christian Williams. That was a good pickup. In a sense, DJ Ivey was, Al Blades. So, we'll see what happens. Corey Couch is another good cornerback to look out for, and we have a young cornerback group with Isaiah Dunson and Marcus Clark. A lot of people are high on them as well. So, hey, maybe the first couple years were a little bit rough for Mike Rump, but maybe the future is a lot brighter, and we'll see with Jason Marshall Jr. Alabama did kind of make a late push for him, so it'll be interesting what that recruiting battle, how it turns out for Miami. Speaking of make or break, coaches being evaluated, the ACC schedule does come out tomorrow morning, guys. I'm pretty interested to see who Miami plays. I gotta ask you guys a question. This is my opinion. I'm not right. I'm not wrong. This is just my opinion. Why does everybody want to play Clemson week 1? Okay, this kind of reminds me of Florida week 1 last year. Oh, it's a new offense. They don't know who our quarterback's going to be. They don't have tape on us. We didn't film our spring game. We gave up 10 sacks. It didn't mean shit. We gave up 10 sacks. Like, you can't win a football game like that. You can't win a football game with missing field goals. It reminds me of LSU when we opened up with Ed Orgeron down in Dallas. I was there. We got
that freaking game, man.
We did not film our spring game at all either. So I'm just kind of confused. Why do we keep repeating ourselves with a big game week 1? Just understand the circumstances. And I see your point. It's a harder matchup, but I still think a great defensive coordinator is going to figure out a way to win. That's why they make the big money. Kevin, what do you think?
Yeah, man. I don't really care where we play Clemson. Being realistic, I don't think we have much of a shot. I love the rah-rah. I love it, guys. I love, let's go out and give Clemson the L. But, I honestly don't think it matters if we play them the first week, play them the 5th week, play them the 10th week. I don't really think it matters. I want to see a competitive game. That's where we know Miami is taking the next step. That's where I'm at. I'm already chalking that up as a loss on my, personal, win-loss record on how the season's going to go. I do think playing them week 1 gives us a better advantage, I guess you can say, like you said, because, they don't know how Lashley's offense is going to look. They don't know how Derek King's going to look in the offense. Limited tape. But then there's also a lot of rust. And like you said, we saw it in the Florida game. Teams are rusty. It's going to be an ugly game. That's just how it's going to work. But unfortunately, it's Clemson. I don't think they're going to be nearly as rusty just because they're kind of a well-oiled machine at this point. So that's the problem. We have a lot more rust to kick off than they do. So in my opinion, I would like to play them later on in the season. I actually would like to play them 7th, 8th week, later on in the season to where we're both kind of hitting our gear. I want UAB week 1. I want to get all the kinks. I want to get everything smoothed out before we get into all these ACC games. I want to see a competitive game. Sure, there's always a chance to win, and I always go into every game wanting us to win, but come on, guys. Let's be serious here.
Kane's at it. What do you think, man?
We're the U, man. Can't be afraid to play anybody, anytime, anywhere. That's the way I grew up watching the University of Miami. I know times have changed, and people are like, that was back then, but my spirit is always with the 2001 team and the early 90s teams where we're not going to be afraid to play anybody, man. It doesn't matter if we get ran up on it. It's going to happen. We need to gauge exactly where we are. We need to gauge exactly where Rhett Lashley is as far as a offensive coordinator. And I think that the best way to prove it and see where we are is to play Clemson. So why not? I say let's go ahead and play them, and maybe we lose by 40 points. Maybe we lose by 12. I have no idea. But I'm not afraid at all.
Northfresh, what do you think?
I definitely agree with the first two guys here. I don't see us beating Clemson, unfortunately. It's just that's the reality of the situation. It's the harsh reality, but we're just not there yet. Can anything happen on any given Saturday?
Absolutely.
Like they say on any given Sunday? Sure. We've seen buck wild stuff happen before. It wouldn't necessarily be buck wild for Miami to do it, but, you know, it's still – if we can make this a competitive game and we can finish that game where we're within 10 points, I would be beyond happy. I mean, that would show flat out improvement to me, to give them 4 full quarters and to really just actually let them know that Miami's actually changing for the better. Let the nation kind of see that as well. I think it would be a big deal for us, but as of right now, man, week 1 to week 10 to week whenever, we're going to get beat. So I guess it's just kind of I'm down for whatever. I'm not scared of them, just down for whenever.
Better Duck, what's your take on this?
I'm definitely not afraid to play anybody. We've been whooped before. It's, you know, losing when you're bad and losing by 40 is nowhere near as bad as losing by 1 when you're good. That sticks with you for decades. Your stompings, they don't stick with you for long. Like, it sucks at the time. My biggest worries are the team stinks fundamentally. Last year, I can't remember watching any team. I watch a lot of college football, you guys do, and being like a team afraid to attempt a 30-yard field goal.
Right.
That's an epic failure of fundamentals. And you have to be able to run the ball on first down for positive yardage. I don't care how many guys are in the box. You know what I mean? Like Oklahoma, they put 10 in the box then. In Oklahoma, they ran the football. And these guys, I just don't know what happened. I don't know what the toxic environment was inside the locker room, how it all just fell apart so badly at the end. Like, of course, they're not that bad to lose those last 3 games the way they did. There was more going on than just X's and O's and execution. Like, you know, we'll never hear it. But until I see the team look like they know how to play football, can you line up? Can you rush the ball on first down? Can you convert a 4th and short? Like, how we go for 4th and 1s, they lose 3. Sometimes I realize the right tackle, I think, maybe he was a freshman or a sophomore or whatever, but in some games against just regular ACC opponents, those kids were getting smoked.
Yeah.
And I was like, this isn't, we're just getting beat up. This team is lacking serious fundamentals. And I'd feel a lot better playing Clemson or anybody else if I knew, like, oh, yeah, we got the running back now. They're going to get their yards. We're going to get yards on the ground. But right now, everything's like a giant question mark. You know, you feel a little bit better with the kicking game because they got the new kid that hammered 2 50-yarders on us.
I don't think our kicking game could get any worse than last year. We played 3 different kickers. I mean, that's horrendous for any Power 5 school. I don't think you're going to have a winning record with 3 different kickers, with 3 different quarterbacks as well. So my question to everyone, you know, the offseason's great. I mean, he's killing it once again. But, like, everyone's very confident going into the season. I'm hearing 10-1, 9-2. Like, where is this coming from? That's all I want to know. I say we have 3 losses, and that's respectable, maybe 4. But where is this confidence that everything's going to change around when Manny Diaz lost the locker room week 2 against North Carolina because we almost lost to Central Michigan? That was not an effort. That was pathetic.
I always say that Canes fan base, as loyal as they are, because I didn't even go to UM. I went to UCF, and all my friends were like, dude, why don't you just get on the UCF bandwagon because we're just rolling. I'm like, yeah, I was born and raised in Miami. I have Miami in my blood. I'm never not going to be a Canes fan. So what I always say is Canes faithful is like kind of like a battered wife. And we just we always think that the husband's going to change. And so we always go into optimistic. As the season comes up, we're always optimistic that this is the year that the U is back. This is when we're going to start feeling better about ourselves, stuff like that. So I think that's kind of the mindset a lot of Canes fans have gotten into is like, you know, it's got to change at some point. When is it going to change? You know, like you got to hit on something. You got to hit on one coach. You got to hit on one recruiting class is going to change it all. Like there's always that, like, I have hope. And I'm one of those people that say I got into it on Twitter the other day when like the schedule dropped and everyone was like, this is what our record's going to be. And I said, you guys are you're not being realistic. And I'm one of the most positive people you'll ever find. But my first instinct when I see the schedule is 11-0. But then I kick myself back and I'm like, all right, let me actually look at this thing. And, until Manny proves it to me on the field, a lot of people don't realize we have been and Better Duck talks about it all the time. People say he's pessimistic and, get off Twitter because you're always talking pessimistically. But the realistic thing is we have been irrelevant for 15 years. Since that LSU beatdown of 40-3, we have never been the same team that we have been in the early 2000s. And until I see it on the field, I'm going to be optimistic and super excited when we get guys like James Williams, possibly Leonard Taylor and all these guys. But until I see it on the field where it really matters, that's where Manny needs to prove it to all of us. And, I'm never going to fully change my opinion on Manny until I go out there, not out there because I won't be in the stands, but I watch it on the TV and see that, like how Better Duck said, fundamentals are there. Kids look like they're ready to play. They're well prepared, and they go out and look like Miami Hurricanes again. So until that changes, I'm always going to have my hesitations about Manny Diaz.
One quick point. Another thing that happened to Manny last year was he ran into over 100 years of experienced coaches.
Yeah.
We've got Butch, who's a bastard and has coached in Super Bowls. And, Butch is a heck of a coach. And he will catch you, like a boxer that can, knock out with one punch. He's always dangerous. Mac Brown, 25 years. Cutcliffe at Duke, more than 25 years.
Damn, more than.
And then just for sakes, throw in the coordinator there at Virginia Tech.
Bud Foster.
Bud Foster. That's 100 years to one. In experience, or give Manny 5 years, a coordinator, this and that, but that's basically like 100 years of coaching. And I'm not good enough at X's and O's to know what Butch did to what the FIU defense did to the Miami offense. But they dropped the secondary, and then it just all unraveled. Butch has seen that before for 25 years. He's like, oh, they were so high last week off those Louisville passes. I'm taking that right away from them. You know what I mean? We're an inexperienced coach that's more like Manny, probably doesn't run into that buzzsaw like that. And then when they see those experienced coaches see, like, you're kicking games weak and you can't run the ball, dude, they bleed you to death right on the field.
Kane's at it. What do you think?
I actually went to the game with Danny Boy Kane. I went to that FIU game.
Is.
And, wow, man, let me tell you, I was not ready for what the fuck I witnessed.
What was worse? What was worse, the Georgia Tech game with me or that game?
Well, it was funny because I remember how we met at that Georgia Tech game. And usually, like I told you, I'm very pumped. But ever since I called that 3rd and 18, I said, there's something wrong with this team. Culturally, they don't have it. There's something, it's like they're deflated. All the morals have been stripped from them. And I knew they weren't going to have it going forward. It's just something that you have. Either you have it or you don't. And you started seeing kids give up on the last second of a play. You started seeing kids not swarming that were supposed to. And FIU was the perfect trap game in the sense that everybody thought we were going to win, how much we're going to win by. And they just completely took the air out of us by fake cramping and doing all this other stuff. And Manny had no answer for it. He really didn't. And that's when you started seeing how much of a greenhorn Manny was when it comes down to coaching in that aspect. But I think he learned. He's somebody that he's not going to sit there and take this on the chin like that and, just be laying down for the rest of the time. He's going to get back up. He's going to learn. And with experience, I think he's going to get better. But, yeah, that FIU game was something that I don't think I'll ever forget. That was horrific.
Norfresh, what do you got?
I think that, last year in Better Duck touched on this stuff where we saw literally issues with the basics. I mean, the core basics of football. We saw issues with the essence of football even at times. I mean, it was something that Manny Diaz wasn't prepared for. Neither did he have the guys on the sidelines that he could go to and actually get some kind of assistance or help from. He didn't have anybody over there that he could go on the sidelines and say, hey, is this a good time? Do we need to call another timeout right now like he did against North Carolina? I mean, we've added guys like Garen Justice, Likens, guys who are actually offensive coordinators at one point in time in their career. They've been through this before. They know these really critical game time situations, what works and what doesn't. Manny only ever looked at that from the defensive coordinator point of view. Him having to come in and just have a guy like Eno, I don't think when he went to the sidelines and asked Enos what the best decision for the offense was, that they had very productive conversations. I don't think that they were productive at all. The guy couldn't even laminate his play sheet in the rain. So, I mean, it just – I will forever give Manny props for the fact that he identified the issues and he made changes and he went out and got guys with actual experience. That part of it, with the fan base, they see that. They see things like De'Aaron King. It's a snowball effect. We want it to be good. We want to feel good about this. We don't want to be down about it anymore. When you've been down as long as we have, you get hope, you grab onto it, and you run with it a lot of times because you just want it to be real. But with Manny, I mean, last year was one of the worst performances, bar none, I've seen from a football coach at that level, first year or not. It just is. And I think that this year going forward, he's going to have a lot more help on the sidelines to really get him over some of these bumps and bruises.
Here's my thing, guys, too. You know, like I think Northfresh Kane just said it very well. You know, Manny Diaz, was his first year uglier than Al Golden, Randy Shannon?
Yeah.
I would have to say yes, absolutely.
Because of who he lost to.
And here's my take on that. Randy Shannon had the #1 recruiting class coming in for the second year. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah.
It was the second
Right?
year.
It was the second year.
Class.
Al Golden always had a good class coming in. I think it was top. He had a #8 in the nation. I could be wrong. It was a top 10 class.
We always had like top 20s for sure.
Yeah, top 20s, yeah.
Manny's recruiting in Miami's never been the problem. So if he doesn't fix these game day issues, it's going to get uglier because recruiting's never an issue at Miami. Mark Richt had a damn good first year. 9-4, wins a bowl game against West Virginia. Obviously, his offense is awful, but, you know, we're really going all in with Rhett Lashley here in this offense. It better work. And personally, my opinion, if Rhett Lashley's offense doesn't work, I don't know what will at Miami. I really don't.
There's another thing that you guys aren't also noticing, that these kids have had to learn like 3 or 4 different playbooks in the last 3 years. So I think that's going to factor in.
Yeah,
we're asking a lot from kids. It's not like you have a system that's been there for this whole entire time.
Right.
It's that's also what I see.
I think it's important to
have.
Oh, go ahead.
You shouldn't have to have a 400-page playbook in Miami. The deal in Miami is we're in the recruiting center of the universe. If Miami has to turn into Air Force and outbeat people in play calling and X's and O's, then it's a failure. The game here is a recruiting game, and we have superior talent. So you should be able to execute a simpler game plan, unlike BYU or whoever that has to execute a flawless game plan because you don't have the talent on your roster. Like, this whole thing comes down to beef and execution here, not so much X's and O's.
I think it's important to know, I think what Northfresh said too is it's very important to point out. Manny noticed the things that were wrong with the team and fixed them the best possible way. So like I said, I've watched a lot of AAC football because I do like to watch UCF every once in a while. And Rhett Lashley's offense is simplistic. It gets the most out of his players. And that's the problem is you have all these kids from South Florida that when they go out and play, they probably have 5 to 10 routes that they know. And they go out and play and they flash their skills because they don't need all these trinkets and all these different plays. Enos's playbook was so complicated that it made these kids stick in the mud and it made them slower. It made them think more. And when Rhett Lashley installs his offense, you guys are gonna say, yeah, it's another playbook for them to learn, but it's gonna allow them to use all of their skill set that they've never been able to use with the past coordinators because they're always overthinking. They're always doing too much. Whereas Rhett Lashley's offense is going to allow them to go out. It's proof in the pudding. It's not like Enos where, okay, he had 2 years at Arkansas where they averaged like 32, 33 points a game. He averaged over 40 points last year with SMU, like Shane Buechele, like all these guys that you don't really know who they are. He's put James Prochet had like 1,500 yards receiving. When's the last time a UM player has had like over 1,000 yards receiving? Like, let's be serious here. Like, he's going to put these guys in the position to succeed. And I think you're finally going to see it, especially with Derek King. He's come from that landscape, that AAC, like run and shoot. Like they're pretty much like the Big 12, like the little Big 12. Like they put up like 40 points a game. They don't play defense. That's perfect. You put that with Manny's defense. He handles the defense. And then you go out and put up 35, 40 points a game. That's it. That's all you got to do.
Kevin, I think you nailed it, dude, as far as just the fact that these guys are going to pick up on this playbook just that much quicker. I think this is something that relates to them and is something naturally that just fits them way better. I always referred to Enos last season as trying to take a square block and fit it into a round hole. That's what it felt like to me all last season. He was taking the strengths away from our players and forcing them to do something they simply weren't good at. And I think this Lashley system is just a lot more natural fit. Yeah.
And everything last year was 3rd and long. If they can get to 3rd and 2, it's an entirely different world. Like 3rd and 11 and 3rd and 12, you're not digging out of that.
We were 3rd and 11, 3rd and 12 with a freshman left tackle and a freshman quarterback. I mean, that's not a recipe for success.
It honestly never made sense. It never made sense to me because every time Enos went spread and he went like 5 wide, he had success. And to me, it never stuck in his brain. Like, all right, maybe I won't bunch all these guys up that have never played like this before. I formation. Like, you have all these offensive linemen from Florida. Like, they're not big dudes. They're not meant to be like that. And that's why I think, too, it's going to work out for Rhett Lashley's offense because we don't have a bunch of bulky kids from Wisconsin and Iowa in the front line where his offense is very fast. It's very fast paced. You know, it's like 5 to 10 seconds between each play. It's like you get up to the line, you snap. 5 wide, like spread the guys out. Like, I'm never going to forget the Virginia Tech game. Dude couldn't do anything. They were down by like 28 points. Spreads it out for N'Kosi Perry. He's throwing bullets everywhere. They finally catch up. And then like the first drive after they catch up, he goes right back to his like bunch formation. Okay, I'm going to like bunch everyone up. It's going to slow down all the players. And then they went like 3 and out. And I was just like, dude, I've never coached football in my life. I've played like 2 seasons of it. And I know that you're doing the absolute like opposite thing you should be doing. Like, it just made no sense to me.
We got to remember too that Manny allowed this to happen. I mean, this is under his watch. He allowed all of that to happen last year. And those are things that, you know, with Lashley, of course, Lashley himself won't allow himself to go backwards like that. I don't think. I mean, he's nothing but going forward on the field and in his career. So, I mean, yeah, I think we've got ourselves a lot better offensive coordinator, guys. I really do.
We need to milk Lashley too, because he's probably only here for 2 years. So.
Yeah.
I heard that about Enos. I'm not poking at him. I did hear that about Enos.
Yeah.
I got to feel bad for the guy Enos, man. I mean, he had the Alabama OC job on a silver platter. He took a very big gamble coming here. And
was that really true though? Like, do we know if that whole story was like true, that he like had the OC job and he left like a pencil on the desk? And I don't know. All that seemed kind of fishy to me the more I went back and thought about it. Like,
I saw they just gave Sarkisian a raise today, so they must be happy with what he's doing.
Love it. He loves the moonshine down there.
It's not hard to coach when you got like all the best athletes in the freaking country.
Seriously.
Hey guys, you know, no coach ever could have predicted or ever wants this to happen. What happened, you know, this whole year, COVID-19, obviously, the pandemic. No spring practice. The season's going to be a mess. There's not even going to be fans. Texas says they're going to go 50%. I doubt it, really. Kane's at it. Do you think Manny already gets another year because of this situation he's in, or he has to prove it on the field?
Man, that's actually a very good question. If there's a season, that's all going to depend on exactly who opts out and who doesn't from our team. I don't think anybody from the Miami Hurricanes has opted out, right?
No one has opted out.
Okay, then I think that's going to have a large part to do with exactly what's going to happen next. If there are kids that opt out, like if Greg Russo opts out, he's like, hey, look, regardless, I'm going to go in the first 3 rounds off the strength of my of the season I just had. And you got some of these other kids that are just going to opt out. Maybe, God forbid, but maybe Derek King just says, you know what, it ain't worth it. I'm already getting my names tossed around in the NFL. I'm going to go ahead and opt out. I mean, it all depends. But if none of the kids opt out and we have a complete season and we compete in the ACC, Yeah, I don't think they're going to give him much slack. But if there's a lot of kids that opt out, then I think that may have something to do with it, with what happens next.
Better Duck, what do you think?
I don't think that they're going to have the revenue to be able to make a change. I think Manny's going to be here for a few years. There's going to take a huge financial loss this year with no fans, no tickets, all that stuff. Manny's here for 2 or 3 years.
That's an excellent point. I didn't even think of, to be honest. That's a really good point.
I didn't even think of that. That's good point.
By the way, guys, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson just like bought out the XFL for like $15 million. So like, I mean, just saying, if we're looking for money, maybe we can knock on his door. Shit. Kevin, what do you think?
I think Manny gets a pass this year, regardless of what happens. It's COVID. I mean, I don't think anyone's going to be like, I think this year's a pass for him, regardless of who opts out, who doesn't opt out. If we play a full season, I think with the whole climate of the world, I think they'll use that as an excuse. And like Better Doug said, like, they're not going to be able to just go buy him out and then go get another coach. Like, I think they're going to use that as an excuse if he fails and say, hey, listen, the climate of the year was tough. You know, we're going to reevaluate. Give him another year. I don't think anyone's going to opt out, mainly because I don't think we have a player right now that, yeah, Greg Rousseau's had his name thrown around for like top 15, top 20, but I still do think guys like him and Roche, they need to prove themselves for another year. I don't think we have a full-fledged, like, all right, if you just don't have to come back this year, you're going to be top 10. I don't think we have that right now. I think he needs to prove it again, Rousseau, that it wasn't like a flash in the pan. So I think guys like that are going to come back and play. I don't think we have anyone that has the opportunity to opt out unless they have like health reasons or anything like that. But I think Manny gets a pass no matter what happens, just because of the landscape of the world right now.
North Fresh?
Yeah, I agree with these guys, man. Just the overall landscape being a weird season, and then what Better Duck hit on there with the revenue part. I think that's going to play, a huge role for every college across the nation. And one thing I think that's getting lost in all of this, and I feel really bad for the kids who have decided to attend colleges and play non-revenue sports, because if football's not bringing in money, if the basketball season happens to have a lapse and not bringing in money, there's already been talk about non-revenue sports having to be pushed to the side pretty darn quick. And that's, to me, that's just a shame for any college kid that had their heart set on doing something at that level.
Guys, it's been a crazy offseason, man. Players are leaving early to the NFL draft as sophomores, foregoing their junior year, saying they're just going to work out and train. Players are also protesting. They're going to sit out regarding wages. Like we said, revenue is a big hit. A lot of people are going to take a hit this year. What's the future of college football like? Do you like that players are foregoing their junior year? Do you think that's a good idea? Are we nearing a new era of college football? Maybe the NCAA is done after this season. Conferences are going to take their own ways. Power 5 goes separate. What do you guys think?
I think it's a TV show, and money is generated by being a TV show.
Yeah.
So ESPN and ABC and their parent company, Disney, they're going to figure it out. I mean, there's so much money at play here, especially with unpaid talent. You know what I mean? My biggest complaint has been that ESPN says Saturday night, watch Trevor Lawrence take on Derek King of the Miami Hurricanes. They're selling those kids by their names, just like the movies sell Travolta and Clooney.
Right.
I wouldn't have as much of a problem if it was Miami versus Clemson, but they feature those kids, and then those kids get nothing, zero. So they're going to figure it out. Like, I'd always wanted Miami to do their own TV deal and get out of these conferences like the ACC and be more like Notre Dame and hand select. Just a pipe dream would be, if everything falls apart this season with outbreaks and stuff, there should be a contingency plan where Miami and Notre Dame can go to Orlando, live in a bubble for 2 weeks, test every kid for 14 days, and then play the game at Campground Stadium as a TV show for revenue. The ratings would be insane. You know what I mean? And teams, they could do like 4. They're going to have to, these school presidents are going to have to innovate. They're going to have to think for once in their careers.
Yeah.
Is this the golden time for the XFL to go to the NFL and say, look, we've talked about being a farm league type system and you guys haven't bid on it yet. Is this the ideal time to make that happen?
Wow. That's a great point.
I always thought I think kids deserve to be paid. I do, 100%. Like Better Duck said, they're throwing these kids out into the world, using them for promos. They're not getting any cent. None of these kids, you watch these shows. I watched a show there. I watched The Last Chance U. I mean, I know it's JUCO, but you got kids like sleeping in their cars. Like stuff like that. A lot of these kids, like, yeah, they get meals, 3 meals a day, but like they don't have time to work. They don't have time to do anything else because their job is essentially working out, going to conditioning, going to class. Like they don't have time for anything else. And a lot of these kids don't come from wealthy families to where they can prop them up. So, I mean, the only thing is I've always said, I do think they should get paid, but I think it's also a slippery slope. Like, cause sometimes what we all love about so much about college football, can be taken away. Sometimes if you make this too much of looking like a professional league to where these kids are getting all these signing deals and all these different things to where what we love so much about college football, which is the passion, they're playing for their school, they're playing to get to the professional level. Sometimes if you're making it that way to where they're already foregoing that and they're kind of getting that at the college level, then you can kind of lose a lot of that atmosphere that a lot of us love about college sports. So do I think they should get paid? Yes. But I think that there needs to be stipulations in place to make sure it's not, too much for kids like Trevor Lawrence that, like that kid could rake in the money if you wanted to today. So I think that there needs to be something in place to where who says that he's like, all right, I know I'm going to get drafted. And like you said, forego his junior year because he's making tons of money. He's like, whatever, I don't need to do anything. I'm making tons of money, and then I'm just going to wait to go to the NFL. Like it's a slippery slope, but I mean, they have to figure out a way to get it done. Do I think the NCAA is going to be done after this year? No, because I do think they need some sort of governing body, whether that's the NCAA or someone else. But, I do think this is going to make college football as a whole think a bigger picture on how they need to move forward with this, because obviously the NCAA is a crap show and it's been for a very long time. So there needs to be some dialogue in place to where they move forward with this.
Kane's at it. What do you think?
I like that the Miami can get its own TV deal. That would be big. That would be huge, man. But right now, I think that we're operating within the constraints of the ACC, and that's all we have right now. I mean, it's going to be an interesting season. It's going to be interesting on what's going to happen next. I have no idea. We were obviously in an unprecedented situation. None of us are ever going to see a time like this again. So I don't know exactly how much of this plays into what. But yeah, I mean, if we can get like a TV deal going, and I would love to see in Miami, Notre Dame. There's a lot of nostalgia there, but as long as we're in the ACC, I don't think something like that would ever happen.
By the way, Miami was offered a TV deal when they left the Big East as a counter to not join the ACC. That was according to Brian the Beast London local radio personality. So
the Canes entering the ACC was one of the worst decisions they ever made.
Horrible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To be fair, I will say the whole genesis of joining the ACC was Miami, Florida State for the ACC title game every year because ACC football sucked. It's always sucked. It's always been a basketball conference.
Yeah.
In the sense of joining the ACC, Miami's never held their end of the bargain. They really haven't, but overall, yes, it penalty-wise, like Miami has complained so many times, like the games are, I'm sorry, but like, it's pretty evident the ACC does not pull for Miami, especially when they first joined. There were a lot of sketchy calls. That night game against Georgia Tech to clinch the ACC Coastal, too many unsportsmanlike conduct calls, a lot of sketchiness. But hey, that's in the past, and it is what it is. We represent the ACC. We are a member of the Atlantic Coast Conference. So my whole thing is win the ACC title and get the hell out. That's my dream. Just get out, go independent, and say F you to everyone.
As much as we hate Notre Dame, they got the blueprint, man. I'm telling you, I mean, they get to skate by, like no one really. I mean, they make their own schedule. Like it's just they have their own freaking TV deal. Like Better Duck says, we hate them, but They got the blueprint, man. I would love to be what they're doing right now.
Hey, I completely agree, man. It's something that when they all dress up in suit and ties going into your stadium, you just want to punch them in the face because they look so good. But anyways, guys, let's finish this show up with some season predictions, man. Better Duck, what you got in the 2020 season?
How many games are we playing?
Let's say 11.
Play 11. They're 6-5.
6-5. Oh, nice. Okay. Hey, I respect it. I haven't heard that one yet. I respect it. Kane's at it. What you got?
I got us at 7-4.
7-4. Okay.
Yeah.
Kevin?
I think their floor is 7-4. I think their ceiling is 9-2. So I'm gonna go 8-3.
8-3. All right. North Fresh?
Gonna go 8-3. I think that 4-loss possibility is very, very real. And the chance to also get the 3-loss or 2-loss is real. But yeah, I'm gonna go with the 8-win season for us.
You know what? The hell with it. I'm gonna say 9-2. I think De'Ara King shocks the ACC. He's the Pat White effect. Rich Rodriguez is the Rhett Lashley for us, and we shocked the college football world with De'Ara King's legs. And
What are your
losses?
losses? What losses?
Clemson. And Clemson and maybe like a Pittsburgh or some random team that we always, lose to. Or a Florida State, man. We were down 28 to them in a packed, sold-out Hard Rock Stadium. Well, it's going to be empty now. So when you're down by 28 in an empty Hard Rock Stadium, which we have played in the past, it doesn't look good. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for coming on. Kevin, North Fresh, Kane's at it, Better Duck. I greatly appreciate it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And always, all about the U.
Go Canes. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. All about that you.